Today we are going to be working on how to create a random variable distribution. So a probability distribution table, but based on a random variable. So recently we've learned that the finite random variable is a countable value that we can assign to just about everything. Typically we use the variable x to signify this. So give it meaning. So x we could say is equal to the number of heads facing up, in which case you would count the number of heads facing up. Or x could be the number of heads minus the number of tails. So again, you take your number of heads and subtract out the number of tails, or vice versa. And then you could say x is something that we have decided to count and bring meaning to. So anything that you want, right? X can just signify. They will always tell you what you want to count for this distribution. So just be aware. So you're going to see down below here that I have A, B, C, and D. This is just kind of in reference to, hey, this was the A column, the B column, the C column, and so forth. So we are going to be working under the coin toss, and we're going to be doing your outcome for your frequency. And what we're going to build, let's see right here, what we're going to build is this portion right here. So let me snap back to our directions. That was over here. So first, let's go ahead and insert this. It says, let's see, B30. So notice that right here, mine is a little bit big, so I'm going to shorten it a little bit. So it says B30, I'm going to label outcomes. Next, we have frequency, and then we have your X values. I'm going to put these in bold. I'm going to put these, no matter what, I'm just going to make sure that it's listed. I also want everything to be in Times New Roman, size 12. There we go. And there is a little bar going down. So until the 38, 9, let's go ahead and put in a border. And then it wants another border right here. Bottom border. Oops. If I'm going to do the bottom border, it's going to be that one. There we go. So it says under outcomes in B31 and B38, list all of the different ways we can toss your coin 3 times. That is to say, we've used this decision tree and now we need to come up with your outcomes. So in order to get to this heads, we first need to get heads, heads, heads. So that is your first outcomes here. Head, head, head. To get to this tails, we go heads, heads, tails. To this particular one, we had to do heads, tails, heads. And heads, tails, tails. And we're just going to be traveling down. For here, we did tails, heads, heads. To get to this one, tails, heads, tails. And the next one, heads, tails, tails, heads, and the last one, tail, tail, tail. Perfect. So now we want to know the frequency. So now this is where your X value will be defined. So it says X brings some meaning. So let X be the number of heads facing up. And I'm just going to write that here to kind of keep track. X is equal to the number of heads. And you can always change this later if you'd like to signify whatever you're working on to kind of help you keep track. But for us, X is a number of heads. So we're going to count your number of heads. So in C31 to C38, find the frequency of your variable. So number of heads, over here we have 3. And then we have 2, another 2, 1, 2, 1, 1, 0. So in D31 to D34, list all of the different frequencies found in column C. Do not repeat. So this one, we're not going to go all the way down. It does have a stop right here, but we're going to look at all of these frequencies here and just kind of recall, okay, well, I had a 3 come up, I had a 2 come up, I had a 1 come up, and I also had a 0 come up. So what we're going to be doing is essentially taking from our knowledge from your frequency lab, we're going to sort these or have your Excel sort these into bins for us. This one is relatively small, so we could do it by hand if we wish, but again, that's kind of a lot of work. So instead, let's have Excel do it. So order from, oh, and you'll see, I did not read my directions. It says order from lowest to highest. So I swapped these. These should be 0, 1, 2, and 3. There we go. So from our frequency lab, we have data analysis downloaded, and we have our Excel sheet sorted out in our information. So let's go to data up here, data analysis. And I want my histogram, and I'm going to click OK. Now for me, we're in our input range, it says C31 to C38. That is your frequencies here. Your input is always going to be your frequency. Your bin range, this will be your X values. We want to sort these frequencies into these particular ranges. We want to put this in E30. So over here, output range here. I'm going to put it in E30. So I'm going to select E30 and you'll notice it pops up and I'm going to click OK. So here we have your bin and your frequency. And again, I'm just going to make it look a little bit better. So the input range should be our frequency and values. The bin range should be our X values. And you should not have two you should not have two. I should have said you now have two new columns listed for bin and frequency. So notice the X values right here are the exact same as your bin. So those two are exactly alike, and that is perfectly fine. What we've done is just we had your calculator or your computer sort these out for us. And you can see that it's just saying, okay, no heads came up and there's only one instance of that. That would be if you got tails all 3 times. So now it says in F39, so F39 is right here. We said equals sum, and we're taking the sum of 31 to 38, so F31. And you'll notice that I'm going to continue all the way to 38. That is just in case your ranges change for future and you want to have something that's already set up. So we have 8. Now this is just signifying how many different outcomes you have. So this is just tallying up all of these values here. There are 8 total outcomes. So I recommend that you extend past your values for those who use Excel regularly. Notice that this column is totally different from our other frequency totals. So this does not equal this total right here. Because if one were to count it up, 3 plus 2 plus 2 plus 1 plus 2, and all of those, right, that's not going to tally up to 8 because as I said before, it's telling out how many different outcomes that you have. Now it says in G30, so G30 over here, type in probability. Right there, probability. And in G31, type in the formula. So equals F31, how often this happened of getting a tails, tails, tails. So that was one instance out of our total 8. We said we want to lock in this 8 value. So we are going to be using $ signs around it. And that way we can drag this all the way down to here. Notice that you do not have to extend it. And if you wanted, you could always extend it further down for the future use. So this is what we're doing. And then of course you can change this up. So the number of heads, maybe if you wanted to say minus tails, okay, well, in this case, heads 3 minus 0, that would be 3, 2 minus 1, that would be 1. And notice that by changing this particular one, that's not going to change anything else here. So what we would have to do is then go ahead and try this whole thing out once more based on your computer. Now, some extra things that if you wanted to do, you can add a column chart to a histogram for your probability column and your X values or your bin range. That's just referring to these two. And then add some things. So we said, hey, we've actually worked on this before. We're going to highlight this column here. I'm going to have you hold down your control and then use your X values or your bin range because they're the same. It doesn't matter. But then you're going to go ahead and insert your recommended chart right here. Again, you can move it if you'd like. Oops. Now, as long as you keep everything kind of the same, so you might end up wanting to extend past a little bit, but notice that this will essentially tell us what it's going to look like frequency-wise. So if you see this on your homework and if you already have it listed out, then great. And you can also copy and paste. Maybe this is just for the number of heads. And then if you wanted to copy and paste this again so that this value doesn't change, but perhaps if you did do it, number of heads minus tails, right? In which case then you can do the same thing. You could say 1, you could say 1 again. Let's see, heads minus tails. So 1 minus 2, this would be a -1 here. 2 minus 1, so that would be 1 again, and so forth. So you can do this whole thing and then just create a new chart. That's always open up to you. So I did not complete this out, nor will I, but it's just in case you wanted to add some more features and do really well in your homework.